Today's lesson is topic writing. Are cram schools beneficial or detrimental? Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Plus Interactive English. My name is Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
And in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about cram schools, and it's our topic writing unit for the month of May. Cram schools, you should know what they are. They're places where you go to cram more information into your brain to help you with your schoolwork, to help you perform better on exams and things like that. But we're asking the question, are cram schools beneficial or detrimental? Are they good or are they bad?
好，今天的主题呢是台湾学生再熟悉不过了。我们先看到标题，它用到 cram 这个字就是指死记硬背，那么 cram school 就是指补习班了。那它用到 beneficial 是形容有益的、有利的， detrimental 则是形容有害的、有不利影响的。所以我们这个月的主题式写作呢，就是要练习写论说文，来探讨补习班的利与弊。像这样的文章啊，你通常就是针对一个议题去发表自己的看法，然后要去说服立场不同的读者接受你的论点。那在写文章的时候，你必须要说明要探讨的议题，然后清楚陈述你的观点或立场，接着可以提出反方论点，再用合理有力的理由去反驳另一方，还有最后记得要重申自己的立场。那这就是这个文章大概的基本架构。同学们，你在下笔之前可以先试着列出这个补习文化对学生的影响，还有它的优缺点，然后你再去决定自己要支持或反对。这样的步骤呢，就可以协助你用条理清楚的方式来陈述论点咯。那我们现在就来练习写作吧。
Okay, so here is how we introduce our topic for today. And the first part, it says, Taiwan is obsessed with cram schools. Parents treat these schools as an educational investment, viewing them as crucial for academic success. So, of course, we know that cram schools are quite popular in Taiwan. In fact, Taiwan is obsessed with cram schools. People in Taiwan really love cram schools. Students go to study at them all the time. And in fact, our dear Chinese teacher, Hanny, used to teach at a couple of cram schools before. So her opinion on this topic may be very informative for us. But indeed, Taiwan is indeed obsessed with cram schools, and parents regard these schools as an educational investment. It's money well spent for the future of their children. It's crucial for academic success. If you don't have these cram schools, then your children are not going to do really well in high school and university and at work.
好，大家应该对这个升学要上补习班都非常熟悉，很多人都有上补习班。那到底补习班对学生而言是有益还是有害的呢？你的看法是什么呢？我们现在就是要把一个文章分成两段，第一段先来说明台湾的补习风气，然后清楚表明你的立场，提出佐证。第二段要针对反方论点来提出反驳。那我们就先看到第一段，我们要先来说明台湾的这个补习文化、补习风气，然后接着我们要来表达自己的立场咯。好，那像我们课文范例，他就写到说，台湾热衷于上补习班，这是真的。好，父母把这些学校当作一个教育来投资，认为他们对学业成就非常重要。好，这家长都会觉得说，念书念不好就要去上补习班，或者是你要升国中、升高中之前要先上补习班，要先早人一步才会有竞争优势，然后我们就造就了这样的庞大补习产业。好，那所以我们要照样造句，你也可以试着写写看，你可以说补习班在台湾是门大生意，很多家长都认为补习班可以为孩子们提供竞争优势。那你要表达是门大生意，你其实可以用 big business 来表达。像如果你说 gyms are big business， 就是说健身房是门大生意。还有呢，你要表达竞争优势，那这当然很好用，可以用在你的写作里面，就是用 competitive edge 来表达 EDGE， 这个 edge 就可以表达优势的意思。好，那我们如果要试着写写看这样的照样造句，我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们可以怎么写。
Yep, you could write it this way. Cram schools are a big business in Taiwan. Many parents believe that these schools can give their children a competitive edge. So this, of course, is a way you can begin your essay by introducing the topic and saying that cram schools are big business and they give children a competitive edge. They will be in advantageous position in the future if they get information from a cram school.
好，那我们现在讲完这个补习风气、补习文化，我们接着就是要表明立场嘛。你要反对的话，你就要写出反对的句子。那我们现在看看我们课文范例怎么写。
Unfortunately, that success comes at a cost. For one thing, forcing us to spend all of our time studying denies us the opportunity to pursue other, perhaps more meaningful interests.So this is the idea here. We're saying that bushibans, or cram schools I should say, are not such a great thing because the success that they offer children comes at a cost. Okay, a cost here just refers to something that compensates for something else. If you get something, then you might have a bad result as a result of getting that thing. For example, the army won the battle, but at a great cost, 10,000 soldiers died in order to win that battle.
好，刚刚 Roger 老师在提到这个 at a cost 就是表达付出代价的意思。那有一个意思差不多的就是 at a price 就是以很高的代价去表达。好，那么这边呢我们看到说已经讲好补习风气了，那我们再来要表达立场嘛。那课文范例他这边用到说可惜那种成功是有代价的，光是这一句你听到就会知道说哦这个人应该是持反对立场的。那接着他再提出这个补习的负面影响，他就说到这会迫使我们把所有的时间花在念书上面，剥夺了我们追求其他或许更有意义的事情啊，可能是兴趣机会等等的。好，那现在我们也来练习写写看，要表明立场，然后说出它的影响。你就可以写说，然而越来越多人开始质疑补习班的好处，用这个去表达你的立场哦，然后主张这个补习班太过注重教育，太过注重说要应付考试而得到那些知识，那忽略了其他事情的那种感觉。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们可以怎么写。
Here's what you might write. However, a growing number of people are beginning to question the merits of cram schools, arguing that they place too much emphasis on education. However, that means you're going to introduce an opinion that is different from what you said before. A growing number, more and more people are starting to doubt or they're going to question the merits of cram schools. They're saying that, hey, maybe cram schools are not so great. Perhaps they place too much emphasis on education and not overall development of a person.
好，那我们再来看到你还可以继续讲这个补习负面影响还有什么。我刚刚用到 for one thing 一来怎么样，接着你还可以用 for another 怎么样怎么样，这是一个搭配 for one thing for another 一来怎么样再者怎么样。那我们请 Roger 老师帮我们念一下接下来课文范例他又怎么说呢？
For another, focusing solely on academic performance can promote an unhealthy approach to education.Prioritizing grades at the expense of overall development. So you could continue your point by saying for one thing and for another, and it's saying here that if you focus only on getting good grades, then that can be an unhealthy approach to education. You're just emphasizing the grades and you're not really talking about overall complete development.
好，那我们刚刚看完课文范例他举的例子，那我们来看看如果是我们这个照样造句写的话，负面影响除了说这个补习班太着重在为了升学考试而得到那些知识，还有另外一个负面影响就是说可能一般家庭他是很难以承担这个补习班的费用的，尤其是升学补习班或者是那种全科班，这个经济上的负担是很大的。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，如果要换句话说来写写看这样的句子怎么说。
Here's the next point.Furthermore, the financial costs of cram schools are difficult for the average household to bear. Indeed, sometimes sending your kid to cram school can be quite expensive.
好，那我们现在要进入写作第二段的练习。那我们刚刚讲了自己的立场，现在呢要提出反方的论点，然后要加以反驳。那么反方论点当然就是支持补习班嘛，支持补习的理由。我们来看看课文怎么写。
People who are in favor of cram schools often argue that cram school attendance improves academic performance. So if you support cram schools, you will say or you will argue that going to a cram school, attendance in a cram school, actually improves your academic performance. You get better grades and you do better on exams.
好，我们来看看反方论点可能会说，支持补习班的人通常主张说补习班可以提升学业表现，都会觉得说有去补习就会有进步，好像就学得比较好这样。那换我们来写写看，我们练习写用别的方式去表达反方论点。我们在表达说支持补习班的人，你除了用 people who are in favor of cram schools， 你也可以用 advocates of cram schools。 这个 advocate 当名词，它可以表达支持者、拥护者或是提倡者。那也许你就可以写说，支持补习班的人呢，通常会主张说花这个钱是值得的。要是补习班没办法让学生成绩进步，自然而然需求就会下降嘛，那补习班就会倒，甚至可能倒光了嘛。所以你看到补习班就是产业发展这么大，当然是有用的啊。也许有人就会这么想。好，那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们这个，换句话说可以怎么写。
Here's what you might say.Advocates of cram schools argue that the schools are worth the cost. If cram schools didn't actually improve students' grades, demand would drop, and the schools would go out of business. So basically, it's logical here. Cram schools must be doing well because they still exist, and parents still send their kids to those schools. They must think they are helpful.
好，那我们接着呢，就当然要提出理由去反对我们刚刚前面提到这个反方论点咯。我们来看看课文它怎么写。
But the reason why students who go to cram schools do better on exams also needs to be taken into account. So we need to consider this, why they go to cram schools to do better on exams. Yeah, we need to think about that as well.
上补习班的学生考试表现比较好的原因，这个原因是要列入考虑的。好，那我们接着也来自己练习写写看。我们可以去考虑到 opportunity cost 的这个部分，就是机会成本。你在面临许多选择的时候，那个被放弃而且价值最高的那个选择，我们就会讲说是这个 opportunity cost。也就是说，我们去补习的话，你花在补习班的时间跟金钱，是不是有可能可以拿来做更好或者是对你更有益的事情呢？你是不是想要拿去做其他的发展呢？那所以我们以这个为出发点，也许你可以写写看说，然而这个论点并没有把上补习班的机会成本列入考量。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们这个句子可以怎么写。
Here's what you might say. This argument, however, fails to take into account the opportunity cost of attending cram school. Indeed, it may improve your grades and your test scores, but it will cost you time in other areas to pursue other things.
好，那我们接着继续来看看我们的课文范例怎么继续反驳这个反方论点，他怎么说的。
Yes, it goes on to say, often cram schools are exam-oriented. In other words, they help students pass exams. This means that we aren't taught to organize, interpret, or digest information without assistance. In short, to think independently and critically. So basically, this is just saying that cram schools just want us to pass exams, and they aren't really teaching us how to interpret the information that we learn.
好，我们课文范例是着重在这个补习班是考试导向的这个部分，也就是说它帮助学生通过考试，那学生靠补习班来做这些组织重点整理，那就没有被协助到说要怎么来组织理解吸收资讯了，也就是说我们的学习独立和批判性思考可能被忽略了，对不对？好，那如果是换我们自己写写看，你也可以说，当我们在评估这个补习班的整体价值的时候呢，你必须考虑到可以用那些时间金钱去追求的其他替代选择有什么？到底你把小孩送到补习班之后，你放弃了什么？小孩放弃了什么？好，接着我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，换你写写看可以怎么说。
When attempting to assess the overall value of cram schools, we need to factor in the alternatives that could otherwise be pursued with the time and money spent on these schools.What exactly are families giving up by sending their kids to cram school? Yes, we need to assess the overall value of cram schools, but we need to factor in or consider the alternatives, other things that we could spend our time and money on, and we need to think about those things and see if those could be an advantage as well.
好，那最后别忘了我们要做结论，要重申自己的立场。如果你原本支持反对立场，后面就要再重申你的反对立场咯。那我们来看看课文范例怎么写。
Until we shift our attitude and recognize that the process of learning is more important than doing well on tests, cram schools will continue to be detrimental to Taiwanese students' overall intellectual development.
好，他说直到我们改变态度并且认可学习过程比考试表现优异更重要之前，补习班将会持续对台湾学生整体的智力发展有害。所以就是补习班这个补习文化对学生有害的这个论点被重申了。那如果我们自己写写看，你也可以写说，事实是对大多数的家庭来说，这个投资报酬率太低，没办法合理化上补习班所付出的这个高昂成本。我们可以用 justify 这个字来表达合理化的意思。那么说到投资报酬率，我们其实可以用 return on investment 来表达。这个 return 它有利润、收益、报酬的意思。那我们用 return on investment 就是投资后你所得的收益和成本的比率，投资报酬率。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，这个换你写写看可以怎么说。
The fact is that for the majority of households, the return on investment is simply too low to justify the high costs of cram school attendance. So the person writing this article sounds like they don't really support cram schools. They think they are detrimental to students. And now we will continue today's lesson with our sample essay. And the title for our sample essay is Cram Schools Are Detrimental to Students. This title here tells us that the person writing the article does not support cram schools, and this person thinks that cram schools are detrimental to the education of students in Taiwan.
好，我们看到这个写作标题 Cram schools are detrimental to students， 它用到 detrimental 就是有害的、有不利影响的，所以你就知道，好，我们这篇文章是站在反对的角度去写的。好，那我们现在就来看文章吧。
Taiwan is obsessed with cram schools. Parents treat these schools as an educational investment, viewing them as crucial for academic success.Unfortunately, that success comes at a cost. For one thing, forcing us to spend all of our time studying denies us the opportunity to pursue other, perhaps more meaningful interests. For another, focusing solely on academic performance can promote an unhealthy approach to education, prioritizing grades at the expense of overall development. So this first part of the essay pretty much tells us that the writer is opposed to cram schools. Of course, people in Taiwan love cram schools, and parents see them as a good investment for their kids. But we're saying that cram schools can be detrimental. They force us to spend all our time studying, and therefore we don't have opportunities to pursue other things like going outside and spending time with friends and learning things that way. So we shouldn't focus solely or only on academic performance, but we should educate ourselves in other ways. And yeah, we should not prioritize grades. They shouldn't be the most important thing in the world.
好，我们来看到第一个段落呢，有一个补充单字是 obsessed， 它是用来形容这个着迷的、心神不宁的。这个字其实有时候你可能会在一些西洋歌曲的歌词里面看到，所以你可以把它学起来。我们常常可能会用 be obsessed with 或是 by 再加某人或某事物来表达对什么热衷、很着迷这样子。然后再看到另外一个字，我觉得这不管是英文单字要把它学起来，还有在生活中也要学起来，就是 prioritize， 就是用来表达说列出、排出事项的优先顺序。我们在人生当中很多事情，还有在每天当中，你都要注意到事情的轻重缓急，要排出这个优先顺序，就可以把 prioritize 这个字学起来。还有这个段落的最后一句，它有用到 at the expense of something， 这是表达以什么为代价，或者是牺牲什么什么的意思。好，那我们接着来看下一个段落。
Okay, here's the next section. People who are in favor of cram schools often argue that cram school attendance improves academic performance. Granted, there is some truth to this statement, but the reason why students who go to cram schools do better on exams also needs to be taken into account. Now, in this section, we have the word attendance, and that's from the verb to attend, which means you're in some certain place, you are there. So, of course, if the teacher takes attendance, the teacher wants to know who is here and who is missing, and going to cram schools is referring to cram school attendance. People say it improves your performance, and yes, this is true, but still we need to ask the question why they go to cram schools and why they do better. These things need to be taken into account. These things need to be considered or thought about.
好，我们看到这个第二段落的大概第二句的地方，它有用到 granted。granted 当副词摆在句首呢，是表达的确如此、确实如此的那种意思，就是用来对反方的意见或看法表达认同，就是带有那种 I admit what you say is true, but 怎么样，就是我承认你说的是对的，是事实。但是怎么样？所以你看到 granted 后面可能还会接一个 but 去表达自己的看法。好，再来它后面用到这个 take something into account， 其实就跟 take something into consideration 意思是差不多，就是把什么列入考虑啊，考量到什么什么的意思。
Okay, let's continue with the essay. Next it says,Often, cram schools are exam-oriented. In other words, they help students pass exams. This means that we aren't taught to organize, interpret, or digest information without assistance. In short, to think independently and critically. Instead, we are encouraged to simply memorize information.So indeed, cram schools are often exam-oriented. They just want to help us pass important exams. And still, they don't teach us how to organize the information, to interpret the information, to try to understand it and apply it to real-life situations, nor does it allow us to digest that information without help or assistance. So,To think independently and critically is what this means. We need to use our own minds instead of just repeating what other people have taught us. Critically here means to look at something and recognize the good points of something or the bad points of something. And of course, to memorize something is just to remember the information without really thinking about what it means.
好，我们接着看到这个第二段落大概中间的部分，它用到 exam-oriented， 就是表达以考试为导向的。这个字为 oriented， 就是以什么为导向，以什么为目标的。然后看到后面大概2-3句的地方有用到这个 digest， 它除了指我们这个食物的消化，也可以指那种知识、资讯的消化，所以有那种吸收、理解的意思。好，那我们接着就来看我们最后文章的结尾咯。
And here's the conclusion. Until we shift our attitude and recognize that the process of learning is more important than doing well on tests, cram schools will continue to be detrimental to Taiwanese students' overall intellectual development. So, yes, indeed, we need to change our thinking and recognize that learning is more than just preparing for tests. And if we don't do that, then cram schools will continue to be bad for Taiwanese students' overall intellectual development. Okay, do you agree with this or do you disagree? That's something that you can consider when you write your own essay or have a discussion with your classmates. That brings us to the end of our lesson for the month of May. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. From all of us here at ALL+ Interactive English, I'm Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.